available in the MCC website right now. I think we have access to it through our new Connect to Complete page. So you can access resources, and we'll continue to build out that page with additional resources. The other thing, after this webinar, you will receive a survey from us here at MCC through SurveyMonkey to check into your current level of interest in Connect to Complete. As you'll hear through this webinar, we're on somewhat of a tight timeline related to an AmeriCorps application. And so we need to know where everyone is kind of along the spectrum as we work to build our concept paper and our application for AmeriCorps. So those are some framing comments. If you have questions during the webinar, if you can pose those in the chat function I think that's the right place, chat function. Ask questions. Mel is manning personing the questions and will respond, and we will also follow up individually with folks after the webinar as needed. So currently on your screen you should see the PowerPoint for the Connect to Complete informational webinar. I have to figure out how to switch that page. All right, so the goal today really to share the key elements of the Connect to Complete model, to discuss our implementation of this program and how we're expanding it beyond a 2-year only program to 2-year and 4-year campuses. And then hopefully we'd like to identify 5 campuses, up to 10, depending on your level of interest, who would be willing to commit to the Connect to Complete pilot class, which would launch in fall 2016. The underpinning premise of all of this is that service learning and civic engagement are proven to have a positive effect on college student retention and success. That's why we're interested in this program. This is why it's been successful in the 4 states that have piloted it so far, is that we're finding a way to really connect the academic side of student learning with the civic engagement and the civic learning aspect for really that holistic student development, and providing some of our more quote-unquote at-risk students with some new opportunities to really envision their life and be successful as students. I think everyone on the line is familiar with members of Michigan Campus Compact. In case we have some new folks here, we are a statewide association. We have 37 members currently in the state, which are 2-year, 4-year public and private campuses, who all share our mission, which is the commitment to service and service learning, civic engagement, as holistic student development and the positive aspects those bring to folks' lives. So we work with faculty, staff, and students, as well as administration on member campuses to infuse service learning, and civic engagement as much as we can into campus life. We are a member of the National Campus Compact. We're one of 34 states in the country who have our state offices. We are also affiliated with the Michigan Nonprofit Association here in the state and the other affiliates there through civic engagement. One of the reasons that we're looking at this program, a couple people have pushed back on it a little bit and said this is really a lot of work, and this is going to take some time to embed this into our campuses and into our culture. But we know that for all of our member campuses, they're struggling with student retention, graduation rates. We have many of our partners who are working in college access, our state members, our partners in the GEAR Up program. So we feel like this is a common core value and need and opportunity for all of our members. And so we decided to move ahead with looking really deeply at this particular program. This also connects to National Campus Compact's goals and priorities with which we have to report back to and we have to align with. So reciprocal community partnerships, college access and retention, and better preparing college students for their careers and for society. The fourth aspect or priority, enhancing college readiness in K-12 education, we work closely with the Michigan College Access Network, and they and the GEAR Up programs throughout the state really are very strong and doing great work in that area. So we didn't feel like we needed to structure any K-12 programs necessarily at this point, but we're looking at how we enhance those partnerships, working with the LCANs, working with our other partners. So I think we're going to be able to report back to National how we're doing more work in that regard with our partners moving forward as well. And then also this provides an opportunity for us in Michigan. We're really big on collaboration. We're really big on continuum work. So if we look at our partnerships with the K-12 realm, through service learning through the league, as well as the college access partners, and how can we pull that all together? We kind of envision our role, and we mentioned this at the MCAN conference last spring. There are a lot of other entities and programs and really good people working to get students to campus, and our role is to figure out ways to keep them on campus through completion and graduation. So that's where we see this partnership moving forward. Connect to Complete is a model that integrates service learning and peer advocacy primarily into developmental education courses. We're going to talk in a few minutes about how that philosophy and that language is changing on campuses, but it's really targeted toward retention, success, and completion of students who typically may be highly at risk for not completing. Connect to Complete is a model that was developed by National Campus Compact. It was piloted in 3 states, Florida, Ohio, and Washington, yes. And then a year later, Oregon started a model as well. The original 3-year pilot was supported by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Unfortunately, there is no bridge funding to support the expansion of that, so we'll have to look for other sources. But the original funding included a really in-depth evaluation component that was done by Brandeis University. In Michigan, we've been having this conversation for about 1.5 years, and we've been working with the partners listed here on the side, M&A, the Michigan College Access Network, Michigan Community College Association, and King Chavez Parks Initiative at Workforce Development. I've also had just real brief conversations with both the new director, Dan Hurley, of the state association, state institutions, as well as we're starting conversations with the private association as well. So we're hoping to bring everybody to the table, and they may not be directly partners, but at least they'll understand and be supporters. This falls into a shift that has happened within the National Campus Compact over the past couple of years under the leadership of Andrew Silligson, the new director or new president at National Campus Compact. And they have looked at their programming, and they have a focus on what they call service learning and student success. Some of you know that the College Positive Volunteerism program that was developed by Michigan Campus Compact and our partners has now gone to the national office, and we retain our support of our campuses here in Michigan, but we're no longer supporting Florida, North Carolina, and all those folks. So at the national level, Campus Compact has connected College Positive Volunteerism with Connect to Complete and some of their other initiatives under the umbrella of service learning and student success. And we really see the opportunity to mirror that here in Michigan. If you'd like more information, the nuances of any of these programs, you can follow through on this hot link. And again, after the webinar, we'll make sure everybody has access to this, so you will have the hot links that we provide throughout the presentation. Okay, so the Connect to Complete pilot, I just want to give you a little bit of background so you understand kind of what we're looking at in Michigan. Some of us have already had the conversations about the 7 elements, the critical elements of Connect to Complete, and we'll go through those again in a minute. But Connect to Complete pilot was really focused on community colleges through 9 community colleges in 3 different states. In that original pilot on those campuses, they engaged more than 4,500 low-income, underprepared students in this model. Really the easiest kind of identifier for the target students are those that are Pell eligible and that they come in either to developmental education courses or on conditional admission. So students who already need some additional supports coming in. The Connect to Complete model is focused on the combination and alignment of 2 critical elements. It's peer-to-peer advocacy and peer-assisted community engaged learning. We know through our conversations with many of our members that many of our campuses already have some sort of program designed to support these students. Many of those programs have one of these elements or the other or some other hybrid. But it's really important to remember when we're looking at Connect to Complete, it involves both components simultaneously. It's really about the holistic student development and really figuring out how we make the connection for students, primarily the first generation college students who are coming into a new culture. They're new on a college campus. They don't have a sounding board at home. Maybe they don't have a lot of friends who are going to college, so there's no one there to help them figure out this new world. So by combining the peer advocacy with the engaged learning, we're able to address the social integration as well as the academic learning and the personal student development. The next couple slides, several slides, are some of the evaluation results from Brandeis University. It was really an in-depth study. The full report is available through the National Campus Compact website, and I think we have a link on our website. If we don't yet, we're still building that. We'll make sure we get it on there. But it was the quantitative and qualitative. They looked at 4 different data sources. They had a control group as well as the participants of both faculty and students. And so they asked the 2 key questions were the impact of the program on the students themselves, and then what elements specifically were associated with positive outcomes. So it's a really in-depth report, and I just want to take a few seconds here on this very first slide related to the evaluation. And if you'll follow the retention rates, the real benefit of this is that the original program design of Connect to Complete is that the peer advocates who we'll talk about are engaged with the Connect to Complete students for at least 2 years. So they're engaged for the first term is when the Connect to Complete student would be in a classroom with their peer advocates and their faculty member. The second term, I lost my mouse, the second term the student would no longer be in a peer advocate supported classroom, but we would find out how to continue our support with those students through study groups and one-on-one calls and coffee visits and all that kind of thing. And then if you look at the students' retention over time to actual graduation, the students who were in Connect to Complete supported classrooms at first term, they have a 6% greater likelihood of completing than their peers who were not supported by peer advocates. And for our college campuses, that's pretty significant statistically. And this was just from the pilot. This was the feedback with data from 5 out of the 9 participating colleges. So there's some margin of error there. But we did feel like when we shared this number with the presidents, they get really excited about the opportunity to move the needle in that significant of a way. I am now going to fly past a couple of other slides that just talk about some of the findings from the evaluation. Because of our time, we want to make sure we get people the opportunity to ask questions. The focus again of the Connect to Complete model of the students are low income and developmental education. Now, I want to go back to this wording about developmental education. This is more common or has been in community college campuses, not so much on a lot of our 4 years, but many of our campuses now have freshman experience programs. They may have required classes for students who are admitted conditionally. So each campus will be able to identify which classes they feel would be most appropriate to build as a Connect to Complete model. So working with the faculty, looking at the typical student population in those classes, we will allow the campuses to tell us which classes make the most sense for them, rather than us being prescriptive and saying it has to happen in a certain type of class. Some campuses might want to pilot it just in one course on their campus. Others may say, we've got 4 sections of Freshman 101, and we're going to build Connect to Complete into all 4 sections. That's completely up to you. All right, so the model itself, and I'm just going to remind you as you have questions, pose those to Mel. If there's something that needs to be addressed to the group as a whole, she will kind of flag me down, or we'll follow up with you afterwards. But the Connect to Complete model, again, it is course-based. So you would look at a particular classroom with a particular faculty member and say, we are going to designate this as a Connect to Complete classroom. Within that classroom, the faculty member would have to be enthusiastic, or at least supportive, of looking at how they build service learning in as a component of the student learning, as well as allowing peer advocates to be part of the classroom for the entire term and seeing the peer advocates really as a partner in the classroom. So the peer advocates are upper class students who the campus identifies. It's ideal if these students have walked the same path. So either they've come in as first-generational college students, or they were Pell eligible themselves, or they came in with something they were working to overcome, some barrier that they understand the struggle of making a successful integration into a college campus, so they can relate to the students they're working with. But they serve as peer advocates in the classroom. The typical ratio of the peer advocates is one peer advocate to a group of about 12 to 15 students. It's really important that the peer advocate be able to form personal relationships with their group of students. So depending on your class size on your campus, you may have 1 or 2 peer advocates assigned to each classroom. But again, that's a formula you will work through. But the peer advocates, when they are in the classroom, their job is to coordinate and support the service learning activities, but also to form personal relationships with the students in the classroom, to get to know them one-on-one, to serve as mentors and advocates for them, to work in the classroom as well as outside of the classroom in getting to know the students and supporting them. So as the peer advocate is in the classroom, they may overhear conversations between a couple of students who are struggling with transportation or childcare or financial aid. And it would be the peer advocate's job then to intervene and say, Mel, I overheard your conversation. I just want to let you know there are some resources here on campus or in the community that can help you. I would be happy to walk you down to the office or get you some materials or help you sign up for something. Or just go meet with them for coffee and help them brainstorm about what some strategies might be. So it's really forming that personal relationship and having that student feel like they have someone who understands them and can help them problem solve and build their chances of success and completion. Yes, we have a question.
So somebody asked if we were saying that the Connect to Complete program cannot be spread over 2 semesters with students enrolled in a Connect to Complete class supported with peer advocates because they're interested in scaffolding the experience over 2 semesters with one course building on another. And they're also interested in possibly moving students through in a cohort model, and they're wondering thoughts on how to best do this, and just wanting to double check that we said they cannot or can spread it over 2 semesters.
Fabulous question, whoever that came from. You're now my new favorite person. So that you absolutely can scaffold it and spread it across 2 courses. You absolutely can create a cohort model. The basic minimum requirement for Connect to Complete is that the students start in at least 1 class. So it has to be at least 1 course. But there's all kinds of flexibility within this model, and how you want to implement it on your campus is completely up to you. It's a great question. Thank you. This next slide talks about the theory of change with Connect to Complete. We've already talked about this a little bit, so I won't spend a lot of time. We talked about the basic 2 elements, you know, really the holistic student development and having a student walk onto campus and feel like they're at home there and they belong there and there are people there that care about them and their overall development. They're not just a number on a classroom. Someone's going to notice if they're gone. So the outcomes really that we've seen and that we aspire toward are really looking at the students, the faculties, and the peer advocates themselves. So the student outcomes, persistence and graduation. Ultimately, we would like to see some of these students feel some ownership and build some leadership skills so that they would aspire to become peer advocates moving forward. And then they would also have their increased civic skills, and they would understand their role in a community more broadly than when they started, perhaps, their education. Faculty outcomes, we look for deeper engagement with students. They're not just teaching a class, they're helping students integrate into a campus as well as working on academic learning. The faculty, we hope they then find increased satisfaction with teaching because we think ultimately they are there to help students. And then have a greater use of service learning as a pedagogy in their classroom. You know, a lot of professors and faculty members say, yeah, that's a great idea, but they don't know how to do it, or they feel like it's too much work in addition to their existing course requirements. So building the peer advocates into the classroom and as assistant in that regard really helps them build this into their classroom. And then with the peer advocates themselves, we see increased persistence and also increased sense of self as a leader. One of the interesting things to me in reading the evaluation report was really how the peer advocate, this simple activity of just becoming a mentor and a coach really opened their eyes as far as what they could do with their lives and who they could be, and seeing themselves as a leader and having new career opportunities that maybe they had never expected, or community leadership opportunities. So it really is a win-win-win kind of a program. We do know that it takes a lot to integrate these on the campus, and MCC is here to help. We'll talk about some of our support mechanisms. And I want to emphasize that the Connect to Complete model, because it's been piloted, because it was funded by Bill and Melinda Gates, there is a big fat manual that goes along with this program and outlines training and outlines support mechanisms, it outlines the role of the faculty, of the peer advocates, and the MCC will be here to coordinate. We'll be coordinating orientation sessions. We can come to campuses and do meetings with faculty. We will facilitate shared training of the peer advocates, so they'll have the core training, and then you can personalize it for your campus. So we are here as a partner in this program. All right, now Connect to Complete. We want to get into this and spend a few minutes. What time is it? I can't see it. Okay. Spend a few minutes looking at the real essentials of Connect to Complete. And some people have laughed at me, but I love food, so anytime I can have a food comparison, it works for me. Think about a Subway restaurant, a Subway chain. They have a very specific menu. The Subway menu is only slightly different, really, from the Blimpie menu, or from the Jimmy John's menu, or from your local mom and pop deli. It's really about branding and about the consistency and the nuances within the program. So while many of our campuses already have some sort of a student support program, and those are all, we've heard different stories. Some are working really well, some folks are struggling with. Some are programs that students opt into themselves. So Shelley would have to walk down the hall and say, hey, I've heard you have this service and I need it. And other programs, this Connect to Complete is more different. It's more intentional. It's almost thrust upon a student as opposed to having them opt in. So we're going to talk about what are the 7 essential commitments of Connect to Complete. So if you have a current program, you can think about what is similar and what is different, and if the different elements are something that you're interested in and able to build into your existing campus programming. We're not saying that any existing programs are bad or not valued by MCC. We will support you in your work across the board. We're just saying that we see benefit to Connect to Complete, and we'd like to see if we can expand this into Michigan if possible. Okay, so where the rubber meets the road. The first essential commitment is that your campus has a course or you have identified the student population where you're serving these low-income students, probably first-gen, to really address their needs for success and completion. So that's the first thing, the target population. The second commitment is that whatever the course across the board or the one classroom, that you identify that the faculty member will commit to both the peer advocacy and the service learning in the classroom. The third commitment is to either create or demonstrate that you have a system on campus to provide your faculty members training and professional development around service learning, the theory and the pedagogy and the nuances. One of the opportunities I've had over this last year is to go to a campus and provide a service learning introduction workshop kind of for some faculty members. And it was really interesting to me the number of faculty who get confused between service learning and community volunteerism and internships and what are the differences, so we can talk about kind of the holistic experiential learning, and we can talk about service learning and how it fits into the classroom. So we need to make sure that the faculty members understand and embrace that. The fourth commitment is to develop a program that will support students for multiple semesters. So the first semester or first term has to be committed to a course. But based on the earlier question, you can expand it across multiple courses if you would like to. But if it is just a one-term course, there has to be a system and a commitment for following up for multiple semesters, so that the peer advocate commitment will be to keep in contact with their group of 12 students for at least 2 years, or however we set it up on your program. Commitment number 5 is to provide peer advocacy and service learning training for the peer advocates. And again, the training model is developed, the core of it. MCC will help with that, and you will personalize it for the resources available in your campus and your community. 6 is where I think our program is significantly different from some of the other models. For the peer advocates to be effective, this needs to be their job. This cannot be an extra volunteer opportunity that is number 7 in the priority list. This has to be top of the priority list. There has to be some accountability, and we have to incentivize this opportunity for them to really embrace it. So this is one of the real critical commitments of the Connect to Complete model. Throughout the different pilot campuses and other campuses where it's been implemented in other states, there are 4 different ways that the peer advocates have been incentivized. One is through federal work study. So some campuses have created work study positions for the peer advocates, and they see that by serving this particular population, they are serving their community and the individuals in their community. So work study is one option. Second is education awards. If you have scholarship dollars available on your campus or other kind of resources available, you can provide an additional incentive to the students, so they're maybe not paid hourly through work study, but you have some different sort of educational award. Third is to provide them stipends, which may be supported through a different grant or some other initiative on your campus. Or with some programs, they created leadership credits. So it was considered an additional course. So the students weren't paid, but they may have gotten 3 additional credits, and at the end they wrote a paper about leadership or whatever it was they did in their program. We are looking at an AmeriCorps model that would be able to support the peer advocates on campuses. And this will be optional for our participating campuses. We know some campuses are interested in AmeriCorps, others are not. The nice thing about AmeriCorps is that it allows us to provide dual incentives for the peer advocates. They would receive their living stipend through the AmeriCorps program, as well as an educational award at the end of their completion. So completion of their year of service, so they could pay back existing student loans or pay for future classes. So we'll talk more about that in a second. But there has to be some incentive for the peer advocates. And then the 7th commitment is that there has to be some campus staff member, it could be a faculty member or someone in an administrative program, who's responsible for the program coordination on your campus. This needs to be sustained. So we're looking for campuses that can work with us really over a 3-year model in Michigan, so that we can build this sustainability on the campuses. We would really hate to see someone try this for a semester and then say, we didn't have the person to coordinate, we didn't have the resources, we didn't have the funding, and they drop it after the first term or the first year. So we're looking at how we can support campuses in building the institutionalization of this, but there has to be a point person on the campus. And again, you would identify that person. All right, so AmeriCorps. We know we've only got about 5 more minutes on the scheduled call. So if some of you need to drop off, do know that we are going to record the entire webinar, and you will have access to that. So if you can stick with us for a few minutes past 10, that would be great. Again, we apologize for the technical difficulty, but you will have access to the webinar later. So AmeriCorps, we submitted an intent to apply for our program. They were due yesterday, And we are working on a concept paper which is due on October 2nd. So the internal team working on this is Mel, Alizia Artis, who's our AmeriCorps program manager, and myself. Shelly will keep us honest with the details and the logistics and what our real capacity is, because I can be a bit of a dreamer, you know. But we are working on a concept paper that will be due October 2nd. And then beyond that, you can see the rest of the timeline. The concept paper will go for review. And then if after the commission review process we may be invited to submit a full application, that application would be due in December. And then we just kind of wait until May. So part of the challenge of the AmeriCorps is that we will be working with our campus programs over the next year to build sustainability and build systems and build program support. But the AmeriCorps is going to be a little iffy throughout this whole developmental year. So for each of us, each of our participating campuses will just have to think about what is that backup plan for incentivizing the peer advocates on campus. If you're interested in AmeriCorps, I think we're fabulous. I think we'll get it, but you never know. Could be someone more fabulous I just haven't met yet. But what's the plan B? So would your campus have the ability to designate some work study positions or something like that? So these will be part of our conversation. So we're asking for campuses to kind of engage with us in this exploration over the next year and to kind of come along for the ride and help us build this program model. We are committed to supporting faculty, to training peer advocates, and to help figure out how to manage the finances, but nothing is guaranteed at this point. There was a period where we were hoping to have identified by now some startup funding for our participating campuses, some startup grants. We have not identified that funding yet. We're still working with it. I'm going to be meeting with Donna Marie Brown from Michigan Nonprofit Association about how we can go out and pursue some funding through some foundations and some other support. So right now, we don't have any financial commitment that we can make to our partner campuses. And I just want to be really upfront about that because I know that's a big deal for some folks. But we are still working on it for both the startup grants as well as the AmeriCorps support, if we can move that ahead. Okay, so in summary, participating campuses will need to establish a team that will include the director or coordinator of the program, the faculty who will be integrating Connect to Complete into their classroom, any other staff or administrators that will be in support of the institutionalization or long-term. Eventually, you will identify and hire your peer advocates who will be part of your team, and then you'll have the Connect to Complete students. We list the Connect to Complete students as part of your campus-based team for a couple of reasons. One is that we're hoping to involve them in some sort of an advisory committee or something, maybe statewide, but at least on your campus, to really look at this program and help us tweak the model from, they're living it. They can tell us what elements work, where we can do better. But then also we've seen a couple of the pilot campuses where the Connect to Complete students themselves actually were able to report back. On one campus, they had a breakfast with the president each term, where they were able to talk about, this is our experience on your campus. This is how this program is helping us, or this is where we think you can do better. But they really felt that sense of leadership and ownership of their education as well as their campus as a community. So we do view them as team members. So this is a team that you will assemble over time, and that we at Michigan Campus Compact envision supporting you at each level. Just now, as we think about our programming with the administrators, faculty, staff, and students, we see our support within the Connect to Complete model in the same way. So we're prepared to work with you at each level. We will also continue to liaison with National Campus Compact and other states who are implementing Connect to Complete, so we can bring resources back to the state. If you're having a particular challenge on your campus, we have a whole wide network that we can open up a question through a listserv or conversations and see if we can get answers for you. We will be looking at, really looking at our current membership to see who could be campuses. also looking at potential members through this program. We've got some non-members that are interested. And then we will help you with your campus readiness. We'll help you build your success team and then to provide the training. Pilot campuses will commit to a fall 2016 launch. So we've got a year to put this together with at least one course or classroom on your campus. And then for the full, commit to this for 3 years with the full 7 commitments. A pilot campus will commit to work with us on those readiness activities. So that means we will jointly schedule and participate in the faculty and staff orientation. We'll do a kind of a readiness assessment with your campus to look at those 7 essential commitments and then help you fill in the blanks. We'll do some implementation planning for you, building out your planning processes over time, your training, your orientation, helping you brainstorm gatherings of the students and that kind of thing. And then we will also assist with the recruitment and training of peer advocates. But that is something where we will rely on the campuses themselves to really make those selections. We're not going to go find your peer advocates for you. That's something you will do, but we will support you in that process. And then again, identifying and committing the resources. And this is something where we know right now we're kind of in the midst of a fiscal year. So it might be hard for some of you to know whether or not you can change over some of your work-study positions to be campus-based for peer advocates, but these are conversations you will need to start having now. Again, as I mentioned, AmeriCorps we're really hopeful about, but in the event that doesn't come through, we need to know what the plan B is for incentivizing and supporting the peer advocates. All right, so we submitted our intent to apply. We're working on the AmeriCorps application. We need to identify our participating campuses really by the end of this week, just so we can get started. And as much as possible, we want to clearly define our model and our target campuses in our concept paper. So some people may say, oh, we don't know for sure if we can commit until December. We will continue to work with other campuses moving forward, but ultimately we would like to have our core group put together to include in our concept paper and really demonstrate to the Commission that we've got enough time to plan and solidify our program for the fall 2016 launch. And I did ask them too, as an aside, a lot of times AmeriCorps members don't start until September or October. But I have talked to the Commission, and they said that they have had AmeriCorps members start in other programs. So if we're able, if we hear in May that we have a program award and we're able to work with our campuses to do the selection and get all the paperwork taken care of, we can have the peer advocates start with the beginning of the class year, the academic year in August, as opposed to trying to integrate them later. So that was something I was very excited to hear about. So we're going to do the assessment and orientation this fall. We'll do the planning and the training over the winter, and then we'll recruit peer advocates in spring and summer. So this is our timeline. I think we're beyond the 10 o'clock time now. If there are those of you who are still on and would like to engage in a little bit of conversation or question and answer about this, we're here to do that. But you will be getting a survey from us later today that asks these questions. Are you ready to commit to Connect to Complete? Yes, no, maybe. Do you have an existing campus program that you would like to talk about, how this might enhance those efforts? Let us know that so we can talk about that model as well. Or for the campuses that need to start from scratch, we can help you with that. So we're curious as well, even if you decide you're not able to do that this year, this is something MCC is committing to over time. So if you think maybe second year you might be more interested, you've got some things to put together on your campus now, please let us know that. We are continuing conversations with King Chavez Parks. They are really interested in this model, particularly as the current Gear Up cohort will arrive on campuses in fall 2017, and they would love to have a support structure there for them. So we will continue to work. We're looking for a pilot for 2016, but we're building out for future years as well. Let us know what's interesting about this program. Let us know what barriers there are for your campus. We know in general what some of the barriers are, but the specifics for your campus as far as structure, cost, identification of classrooms, we're here to help you problem solve and see what we can do with this model. As I mentioned in the beginning, we're really excited about this holistic model and the way it pulls multiple components together, but we are also here to support you in your existing efforts in the programs that you already have on your campus. So I'm going to ask Mel if we have any questions or comments that have been posted.
Nope. So somebody had a few questions pretty seriously related to AmeriCorps and how that might look, and I think I've guided them to a technical assistance call that we should have coming up that will give just all of the detail around very specific AmeriCorps questions, so that I think that will be helpful to you and those of you who also have those questions. I have a question popping up here, so I'm going to take a look at it. Continue to use the question function if you can, or you can raise your hand if you'd like me to unmute you.
Before you go to that question, you just reminded me that I missed a piece about AmeriCorps. The AmeriCorps placements that we are looking at for the peer advocates are quarter-time members. Quarter-time members will serve roughly 12 hours a week while school is in session. So that would allow them time to be in the classroom for a couple hours a week and also have the outside time to be working with the faculty member, coordinating service learning, doing the one-on-one interaction with the students, coordinating study groups or trips to financial aid, orientation around campus kind of thing. So those quarter-time members would receive both the quarter-time living allowance or stipend as well as the educational award at the end of their year of service. So that's what we're currently looking at. So on your campus, again, the ratio would be 1 quarter-time AmeriCorps member to about 12 to 15 max students. So that's what we'd be looking through. So thank you for that reminder. Question?
So someone said, how do we let you know if you're interested in participating? And I let them know that they can tell us now or through the survey that will be coming out very shortly.
Yeah, later today.
Yep, later today. How soon will we be getting the recording of this session? There are several on campus that I need to share this information with before a decision can be made, and I said probably by the end of the day. Yes. So the next question is about AmeriCorps. Does each campus get 1 AmeriCorps member at 12 hours a week, or is that flexible by campus?
That is flexible by campus. We're building the technical assistance call right now. Your campus will have the opportunity to request as many AmeriCorps members as you can use. So if you think you need 7 quarter-time AmeriCorps members, you can apply for that. If you think you need 1, you can apply for that. But we'll allow you to tell us what you need within your program. We will also have, we think as part of this program, some full-time AmeriCorps members, but we have to be very clear that AmeriCorps members are not VISTA members. So the AmeriCorps members would not be able to serve as your campus coordinator at this point. Eventually, hopefully, we can have some VISTA members doing that. But so predominantly for this program, we'll be looking at the quarter-time members. But again, we're putting together our technical assistance call where we'll get into all the weeds of that.
For the person that asked about the recording, we also did do this webinar a few weeks ago, and it's already up on the website. It'll have very similar, pretty much the same information. So if you would like to, go find that immediately, you're more than welcome to do that. But we will have this out soon. Any other questions? We had a few coming in there hot for a while, but it looks like people are kind of leaving and winding down. Any other lingering questions out there? No question is a bad question.
All right. Well, you know how to get a hold of us. You can email us. You can call us. We'll have the information up on our website. And again, you will have the SurveyMonkey survey by the end of the day today. Just based on what we've learned about AmeriCorps, we want to amend just a couple of the questions. So we did send the survey out after the first call. We'll be sending the amended survey out to everyone, including those who participated on the first call, just to make sure everyone's on the same page with things. So let us know how we can help. Let us know if you're interested, and we'll be scheduling meetings with you individually and then forming our cohort very soon. Thank you all so much for your patience. We learned a lot this morning about technology, let me tell you that. But thank you for your patience. Thank you for your interest. Thank you for being part of MCC. We're doing some really innovative work, and it's getting a lot of recognition, and we wouldn't be able to do this if we didn't have you as partners. So thank you, and have a fabulous Wednesday.